The wait is almost over. The second part of Dune is now under production, with the sequel taking us back to Arrakis in 2023. If you're as excited as we are, you might have tons of questions about who's part of the cast this time around, what direction the story is moving in, and exactly when we can expect the film to hit the theaters. So stay tuned, because this video, we're telling you everything you need to know about Dune 2. First up, the sequel is finally coming. It's hardly surprising. By the time Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel hit theaters in the United States, all indicators pointed to a sequel. Warner Bros. CEO Ann Sarnoff all but announced a sequel on October 21st, the day before the film's release. Legendary Entertainment and Warner Bros. Confirmed on October 26th that Dune Part 2 has been officially greenlit. Warner Bros. Announced on Monday, July 18th that work on Dune Part 2 had begun. The film is now being shot in Budapest, Hungary, where Part 1 was also shot. The shoot will then travel to Italy. Villeneuve said in a statement that they had received confirmation from Legendary and are officially going forward with Dune Part 2. It was a dream of his to adapt Frank Herbert's Dune, and he is grateful to the fans, cast, crew, Legendary, and Warner Bros. For their support. He then remarked that this was only the start. So, what is the future of the Dune franchise? We haven't seen much of the sequel yet, but Zendaya gave us a breathtaking behind-the-scenes glimpse at production in November of 2022 to get us excited for the release. The first film was a great success, so it doesn't require much promoting. It's a good thing Denis Villeneuve took the decision to divide Frank Herbert's novel into two parts, because part 1 ended on a major cliffhanger. So we're all pleased a sequel is on the way to conclude the tale. Villeneuve is even considering a trilogy, adapting Herbert's Dune Messiah for the third film, although it would largely rely on the sequel's box office results. So, when is it hitting the theaters? Dune Part 2 will now be released in theaters on November 3rd of 2023, after a few date revisions. It was originally set for October 20th of 2023, before being pushed back to November 17th of 2023, and then Warner Bros. Brought it up to its present date. Let's hope the release date holds true, but anything may happen. Unlike the previous film, which was released on HBO Max on the same day it was released in theaters in the United States, the sequel is anticipated to have an exclusive theatrical release in the United States rather than a day and date streaming release. As previously stated, filming on the sequel began on July 18th of 2022 and will take place on site in Budapest, Abu Dhabi, Jordan, and Italy. Assuming there are no delays during filming, they intend to return to Arrakis in November of 2023 as scheduled. Keep your fingers crossed. When production began, they were also given formal confirmation of who would be returning for the sequel, as well as who would be appearing for the first time. Let's talk about who's returning to the sequel. Timothée Chalamet reprises his role as Paul Atreides, and his co-star in the sequel will be Zendaya's Chani, who we knew would play a greater part in Part 2 when Paul finally met Chani at the close of the first film. Rebecca Ferguson reprises her role as Lady Jessica. Javier Bardem reprises his role as Stilgar. Stellan Skarsgård reprises his role as the malevolent Baron Harkonnen, and Dave Bautista reprises his role as the Baron's nephew, Glossu Raban, also known as the Beast. Bardem, like Zendaya, will have a larger role in the sequel, as he disclosed to Vanity Fair that the extended sequel role was part of Villeneuve's presentation to him. However, don't expect to see Oscar Isaac reprising his role as Duke Leto Atreides, or Babs Olusedomokin reprising his role as Jameis, as both were murdered off in the previous film. Book readers will be aware that Jason Momoa has the possibility to return as Duncan Idaho later in the book, but most likely not in the sequel. The fates of Josh Brolin's Gurney Halleck and Stephen McKinley Henderson's Thufir Hawat were left undermined following House Harkonnen's raid on Arrakis, but both have been confirmed to return in Part 2. Chalamet said of Zendaya and her enlarged role in the sequel that she's delivering precisely what she brought to the previous one, which was wonderful, but this time in greater quantity. Up next, the new additions to the cast. Part 2 has already revealed that Elvis star Austin Butler will play Fade Ratha, Florence Pugh will play Princess Irulan, Christopher Walken will play Emperor Shaddam IV, and Lea Seydoux will play Lady Margot. Chalamet has already heaped praise on Pugh's performance in the film, which marks the pair's second collaboration. He said that she's a fantastic performer. She was fantastic in Dune. She added gravity to the character. Sohaila Yacob was the most recent addition to the cast, and she'll be playing Freeman Warrior Shishakli, although there might be more surprises revealed now that production has begun. The casting announcement was first reported by Deadline. You may remember her most recently featuring in Gaspar Noé's Climax, and she has also been in Debas Etages and The Braves, both of which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. She also starred in The Salt of Tears, as well as the drama series Les Sauvages and No Man's Land. Léa Seydoux, fresh off plaudits for Cannes features One Fine Morning and Crimes of the Future, is scheduled to portray Lady Margot in Legendary's next Dune sequel. Lady Margot Fenring serves the Sisterhood while falling under the influence of House Carino in Frank Herbert's original novel. Moving on, Christopher Walken as the Emperor. Following his appearance on Apple TV's Severance, Academy Award winner Christopher Walken will reprise his role as Emperor Shaddam IV in Warner Bros. And Legendary sequel. He portrays the universe's monarch, who first dispatched the Atreides family to their doom in Arrakis. The part was performed by Jose Ferrer in David Lynch's 1984 film. Austin Butler has been confirmed as Fade Rautha's replacement. Austin Butler is moving on from Elvis to Dune Part 2. The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood star has been cast in the role of Fade Rautha, the villainous nephew of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen and heir to the Harkonnen Empire. What's more, Johan Renck will be directing the sequel, and it will include a lot more IMAX. Following on from the films, HBO has launched a Dune prequel series. Johan Renck, the Emmy-winning director of Chernobyl, has been recruited to direct the first 2 episodes. Denis Villeneuve was originally set to direct the pilot, but he is now working on part 2. The program is set 10,000 years before the events of Dune and also follows the Harkonnen sisters as they fight for humanity's destiny. Denis Villeneuve indicated that the sequel will absolutely employ IMAX. Cinematographer Greg Fraser and Denny reportedly fell in love with the format, and there will very certainly be IMAX material in our film. Absolutely, Villeneuve told Collider. Fraser also worked on The Batman alongside Matt Reeves and The Mandalorian for Disney+, so he's got quite the resume for the job. Also, expect a lot more Harkonnen house. Stellan Skarsgård's slimy Baron Vladimir Harkonnen virtually stole the show in Dune Part 1, planning a coup against the House Atreides from his inky black stronghold. After giving us enough of Atreides to munch on in Part 1, Villeneuve stated that we could expect to see a lot more of House Harkonnen this time around. Villeneuve stated in a recent interview that he wants to have more flexibility in the second one, and it will be feasible to dive a little bit further into some of these subtleties. Some of these elements include elaborating on the Harkonnen clan, including villain Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, played by Skarsgård, and his nephew Glossu Raban, played by Batista. Villeneuve said in a statement that a choice he took very early on was that this first part would be more about Paul Atreides and the Bene Gesserit, and his experience of being in contact for the first time with a different society. In the second section, there will be a lot more Harkonnen material. Now, for the storyline. This sequel will follow Paul Atreides on his mythological odyssey as he joins forces with Chani and the Freemen on a warpath of vengeance against the conspirators who slaughtered his family. Faced with a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the known world, he attempts to avert a dreadful future that only he can predict. The first film covered slightly over half of Herbert's book, finishing as Paul and Lady Jessica were admitted into the Freemen and on their way to Stilgar's mansion. With House Atreides mostly devastated, it'll be them versus the Empire in the sequel, where we're likely to see more of Paul's ideas of his future come to reality as he leads a revolution against the Empire. Villeneuve noted that when he considered finishing the film later with the book's time shift, he decided that his initial inclination to break when Paul encounters the Freemen was the best place to conclude it. The first film provided fascinating hints for what's to come in the character's future as he battles with his ultimate fate, which might be linked to Chani and the Freemen of Arrakis, thanks to Paul's prophetic talent. The sequel, according to Villeneuve, would get a little bit further into some of these aspects, including the aforementioned Fade Rautha. He explained that it's like a chess match. In the second installment, some additional characters will be introduced. Finally, the evolving script. The script for Dune 2 will always be a work in progress. Denis Villeneuve told Collider in March of 2022 that the sequel screenplay is largely written, but it would always be a work in progress until until the final edit of the picture. Additionally, Villeneuve stated that several premises in the first film will have to be ignored in the sequel. The filmmaker said that there is greater strain in some respects with the second one, and this is the first time he's revisited a world. But what helps is he's working with the same group. Everyone knows what to do, and they know what it will look like. So while the movie will be more difficult, they know where they're going with it, and the screenplay is finished. Everyone behind the scenes seems very confident that the movie will come out great. But that is a wrap for this video. Are you excited? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.